Hey, what's up, guys? So, just making this video to kind of talk to you all for a few minutes. I'm going to try to keep this around 5 minutes long. Hopefully, it won't go longer than that. But basically, I just wanted to say thank you to all the comments that have actually shared their own experiences with their struggles with autism spectrum disorder, and then other people who have shared their experiences with psychosis and schizophrenia, and also narcissistic, abusive parents and friends. And it's really helped a lot because it helped me realize that I'm not alone, that there are other people who deal with the stuff I deal with. And it is kind of frustrating because only about like 1% of people in the US experience psychosis, and it manifests around the mid to late 20s in most people. And autistic people actually have a higher chance of getting psychosis and schizophrenia. So it's very frustrating because, like I said, it's about like 1% of people of the population, which means there are more millionaires than there are people who will actually ever know what I deal with. But I've had some people who told me that, you know, their mom got schizophrenia or had a psychosis episode from reading their Bible, which I actually had occur twice, because when I was in those episodes, I thought something supernatural was happening. So I went to my Bible and then I started misinterpreting my Bible and getting commands and whatnot. And then I actually had someone else comment on one of my videos saying that one of their relatives, I think their grandfather or their uncle or something like that, he started believing that he was getting messages from the government and that government satellites were telling him messages and all sorts of things like that. And it just reminded me of how, you know, yeah, in my psychosis episodes, and two of them, I've thought that I was a government agent, like I was getting commanded by the government to do this and do that. And I was even told at the time that I had a secret code name, and I'm not going to say it right now. It is related to an anime, but yeah, it was just weird though, because, you know, I used to think I was like alone on this, but then I'd research stuff online and I'd see, okay, so other people in psychosis are getting commands. This is how a lot of people will get into situations, good or bad, to where it makes the person look completely insane. And I mean, it does, obviously, but that's the thing. Like when you are in psychosis, you're getting commands. And since most people are just kind of figuring out what depression and anxiety are, you know, they don't really teach this stuff in the educational system, because a lot of people, even autistic people, will be saying stuff like, oh, well, I'm autistic and I don't have these symptoms. But autistic people don't share the same symptoms. Like there's no same autistic person on the spectrum that has the same symptoms as another person. There's similarities between the symptoms, but no one autistic person is the same. So whenever I see someone who's like, oh, I'm autistic, I don't have these issues, it's like, well, you just kind of expose yourself as someone who doesn't really know anything about your own disorder in the first place. And you're kind of being self-centered based off only your symptoms, when it's clearly a spectrum. And there are three levels to autism. There's ASD1, ASD2, and ASD3. But ASD3 is like the worst one, to where that's when you're like more nonverbal and you have a lot of quality of life issues. But yeah, it's a brain disorder. It's a neurological disorder. And, you know, it's kind of frustrating because I know a lot of people don't have the time to research this kind of stuff. So it's like, you know, basically I have to learn other people's brains that are different from an autistic brain. And then those people have to learn my brain. And it's just, I don't know. It's a lot of, I guess it's a lot of expectations to really expect people to understand what's going on. But, whenever I just see people who are like, oh, he's just being schizo right now, he's just in a schizophrenic episode right now, I'm just like, bruh, you really don't know what it is. Like, you really, really don't know what psychosis is, because if you've never experienced it or you've never seen someone else who's in that kind of episode, then you're not going to really know what it is. So I just kind of disregard those comments. Not really doing any of this for attention or money or anything like that either. It's really just trying to show awareness of my symptoms, how abusive situations can cause a person to get into those episodes, because with my dad, it's pretty crazy. I've watched so many videos in the past with him of autism spectrum disorder and mental illness and whatnot. And it's like he knows all these symptoms, but in a way, because he's abusive, it's like he kind of knows what the buttons are to press. So I almost kind of like gave someone who is like my enemy all the tools on how to trigger me and take advantage of my shortcomings. So it's pretty stressful, but it is what it is. It's yeah, it really is what it is. And it took me a while to kind of, admit to myself, because I didn't really want to think to myself like, oh, my dad's like this kind of person. Like, I would try to always forgive and forget, but because my symptoms with autism are ruminating thoughts, which, if you don't know what ruminate means, it's kind of like how, if you've never researched this, see, before I was into like cars and YouTube, I was really into animals. That was my obsession. And a ruminant is a cow. Like, a ruminant is something that kind of like constantly chews on the same thing, like a cow chewing the cud. It regurgitates its food and it re-chews on it. So, hey, what's up, guys? Okay, sorry about that. My audio cut out, but yeah, basically, ruminating thoughts are where the thoughts keep coming back and you remember things very vividly. It's just constant. And it's part of my disorder, but people don't realize that. So they're just like, why do you keep getting stuck on the past? But it's like, it's literally part of my disorder. It's not something that medication can get rid of. It's not something that I guess I can really get rid of. And another thing too, since some people think that I'm lying about stuff like this, autistic people tend to have pretty good memories. Like, if you actually look that up, most of them have really good memories. And a lot of the stuff that I've been discussing, I actually remember, like, kind of like the place, the space, everything, even the abuse that occurred when I was a child with my dad. So I remember that stuff pretty well. The only things I don't remember are usually my psychosis episodes. So me bringing up all this stuff isn't really part of the psychosis episodes. I remember some things, like I remember some of the commands that made me do specific things, like, like I said, put a power saw to my leg and cut myself on my chest. But then everything else kind of becomes blackout memory because it was really... Okay, sorry about that. It was really traumatizing, those multiple episodes, so I don't really have a great recollection on those things, because that's part of the psychosis and schizophrenia, where you have blackout memory from those episodes, because it's kind of like your mind is trying to like almost protect itself. It's like a mechanism, like a defense mechanism for the brain. So there are a lot of things in my psychosis episodes I don't really remember. I remember some of the more traumatizing and more, I guess, key moments of it. Like, like I said, thinking that the government was commanding me to do and say things and giving me these messages and shooting them to me telepathically. But yeah. It's kind of frustrating, but I understand that you all aren't going to understand. It took me several years to research my autism spectrum disorder, and then it took me a while to research schizophrenia. So, I just understand that most people don't have time to look those things up. But I hope that eventually, someday, you all will be able to look into it, see for yourself, and then you'll kind of see, oh, okay, this makes more sense now. But until that time comes, I'm just gonna have to, understand that you all don't fully understand what's going on. And yeah, I'm not in an episode right now. I'm a lot calmer because my dad's not around me right now. But yeah, I'll see if I can make another video kind of short like this where I just explain some things. And, if you have an ear to listen, I really appreciate it. And if you could share your similar stories of whether or not you've had autism, schizophrenia, or psychosis, or know someone who has, I'd really appreciate that. But anyways, sorry I spent like 10 minutes talking. And yeah, thanks for listening. Bye-bye.